Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for A.J. O'Neal. A.J. O'Neal.
You know, he ain't heavy. He's my brother. I learned that a long time ago. The last thing Frank said to me was, you got to take care of your brother. Now, Frank was a father figure to me of sorts back in the mid-'90s. He was a construction guy, beefy guy. You know, he skier and handball champ. I was big back in the day. Taught me construction. The last thing he said to me was, you got to take care of your brother, because that was at the time when he was skin and bones. The last day of his life, he had contracted AIDS. You know, I don't know whether it was from unprotected sex or a hip replacement operation. No one really knows, but the fact is, here was this man emaciated, and he said, you got to take care of your brother. You know, now a brother is a great guy. He's my Irish twin. Anybody know what an Irish twin is? Someone born sibling less than a year apart. Well, my brother and I are born 11 months and 3 weeks apart from each other. So for 1 week out of the year, every August, we're the same age. And it was pretty cool when we were kids. I remember when my mom says, parents said, we're going to have one party for both of you. And we said, oh, no. You got to have both parties. But those were good days. But, you know, he was born cognitively challenged. He was never given gifts of maybe taking care of paperwork or being able to do things that you do in everyday life. Now, he's the wittiest guy in the world, one of the funniest people you'll ever meet, just as joyful as anybody. But, you know, they always said he'd need help making it through the daily things in life, and that's what Frank meant, you know, especially finding a job. So when it came time for me to find a career, it wasn't just for me to find a job for, it was for me to find me and my brother a job for. So, you know, he ain't heavy, he's my brother. We found jobs as, very appropriately, a roofer. I became a roofer, and Dennis was my cleanup guy, my helper, my laborer, my fix-it guy. And we made a great team. I loved roofing. I really did. As much as people may fear it, we would climb up on a ladder. Some of the houses in Detroit have low pitches, and some of them have steep pitches, and some of them are way up high, and with turrets, and they're beautiful. You know, turrets are witches' hats, we call them. They're big and round, and some of the old beautiful homes in Detroit have some of the prettiest roofs you'll ever see, and it gives you such joy to be able to accomplish something like that. So there I would be putting the shingles on the house, and Dennis would be down there cleaning up the ground and making sure that not a granule of shingle was left, or a stray nail or anything. And you know, we did that year after year, in summer and spring and winter and fall, and the hottest days of summer when you drink gallons of water and you'd sweat instead of pee. You just were so hot. You just never even pee. It was like, how'd that happen? We would drink so much water too. And in the wintertime, we love winter the best because you could always take layers off if it got warm, but it never really seemed to get too cold out there sometimes. But you know, it's always a little warmer up on a roof in the wintertime, as strange as that may seem. But, you know, it was a great team, him and I, and it went on for 20 years. Then along 2005, it was July, and the skies were dark around us, and I was on one of those big 3-story houses in Indian Village, and I knew I better get going because I'm at the top of this ladder, and I see clouds coming, and I'm like, I just got another shingle to do, and I'll be done with this job. Well, the wind thought better and blew my ladder, and a gust of wind came, and the ladder went flying one way, and I went straight down. And you know, if I hadn't had this arm out to block the fall, I probably wouldn't be here today, because it would have been my head that hit first. But instead, it was my arm and the left side of my body, and I broke just about every bone there was. It was it was many, many days in intensive care, and many, many days where I was not able to eat. And, as I came to and started to realize, doctors told me, you better find a job without a ladder. You're going to recuperate, you're going to be okay, but, kind of find a different job. Well, it's easy as that sounds. When you're working for two, I had to keep that into consideration, and jobs were still coming in. I had people calling me at the hospital in intensive care, and I'd say, is this AJ's roofing? And I'd say, yeah, I had a bad accident and I'm in the hospital. And they'd say, oh, that's too bad. Well, when can you get to us? And I'd be like, we'll see what we can do, And I'm like, I do have to pay my bills. So I called some of the subcontractors that I knew, and I kept the roofing business going. I wasn't really keeping Dennis too busy, but I was keeping the business going, and I didn't know what I was going to do, so I got to a point where the friend of mine could wheel me over to look at my job site, and I looked at the roof that the guy that I had hired to do my roof, and it was crooked, and I said, get me over there, and the guy wheels me over there, and I literally got from my wheelchair up onto that ladder and hopped up there with one broken leg, and I said, you can't do my roof with that crooked line like that. That's not acceptable. And, I was like, I went back to roofing. I had no choice. My brother and I, we had to eat, we had to pay bills, and, but I knew I couldn't do it forever. So I did get better. I got better enough to walk, and as I would take my walks in downtown Royal Oak, is where I was at the time. I walked by a building. It was a closed restaurant, and it said for lease. And I thought, that's great. I'll be a restaurant guy. What could be so hard? I'll let my friend Brandon. He was a barista at a coffee place in Taos, New Mexico, and he said, I'll do coffee, you do soup. It should be easy. What could be so hard? So we got a lawyer to draw up the lease, and we were all set to sign the papers. And the day we went to sign the papers, it was sold to someone else, and I had to go back to roofing. So I thought, well, what could happen? A few months went by, and I got a call from that same lawyer, and that lawyer said, there's a place that opened up down in Ferndale. It's right on 9 Mile. It's a pretty well-known place. It's called Zato's. I'm sure if you're an old beatnik, you probably heard of the joint. But I walked into Zato's, and I walked into some kids making out in the corner, probably like Bob's place, Kids were making out in a corner, and I'm like, oh my God, what's going on here? There's people selling old books in another corner. And 2 weeks later, on April 1st, 2007, it was AJ's Cafe in downtown, beautiful, fabulous, funky Ferndale. And I didn't know what the hell I was going to do, but I thought, you know what? Let's give it a go. So a few days went by, and we weren't getting much business, and a few more days went by, and I wasn't getting any business, and somebody finally came in and said, you should bring the music back. And I said, I got a radio. And they said, no, not the radio, live music, like open mic. That's what this place was known for. And I said, I don't know what the hell that is, but let's give it a try. So we brought a guy in, and he starts doing open mic, and instead of getting 3 people, I'm getting like 8 people. And I'm like, well, that's an improvement, So about 3 weeks went by, and I asked him, I said, can I sing a song? And he said, you own the place, of course you can sing a song. So I went up there, and the only song I really knew, like the back of my hand, was, oh, Danny boy, the pipes are calling from glen to glen and down the mountainside. I sang it at my father's funeral 10 years earlier, and it was beautiful. It was an Irish rendition of a beautiful ballad, and it was so good, a couple people even cried, I think. Oh, I remember that song from blah, blah. And I was like, oh, so it was so good the next day, or the next Wednesday, I did it again, But come ye back when summer's in the meadow, or when the valley's hushed and white with snow. Even getting a little Irish brogue, I'm like, I'm getting good at this. And so next week I did it again. But come ye back, and someone's like, why don't you learn a different song? And I'm like, oh, we can't do that. This is my song. This is my sacred song. I can't give up Danny Boy. Why don't we all sing it? If we all sing it, I'll put it to rest. I was joking. Some schmuck from the Free Press was there that night, and he says, do you mind if I do a story on that? And I'm like, creativity for survival. Yeah, sure, you can do a story on it. Come on in. I'm like, oh shit, I gotta invent a Danny Boy marathon. So, I would put up this little sign-up sheet, and people are coming in, and finally, like, days are going by, and I'm like, what the hell am I doing? We're doing a 50-hour Danny Boy marathon, and it's like a month before St. Patrick's Day, and I got like 40 people signed up, and it's like, so there's an article in the New York Times from Foley's Pub, and it says if Foley's Pub has banned Danny Boy in their bar because they think it's sacrilegious, and if you want to sing Danny Boy, you should go to this place in Ferndale, Michigan, because they're going to be singing it there nonstop. And suddenly, I'm like all over the world, like I'm getting phone calls and people, can I come and sing Danny Boy? Can I come and sing Danny Boy? And I'm like, holy shit, I'm famous. And it's like, oh my God. So I sing Danny Boy, we sang Danny Boy nonstop for 50 solid hours. Rappers, pipers, flutists, talented, not talented. On Sunday at 1 o'clock, a line went out the door from all the church choirs. The Lutherans were waiting behind the Baptists, who were waiting behind the Presbyterians, who were swearing they were going to kick the Catholics' ass, you know? And it was like, oh my God, this is so awesome. Monday, the governor showed up and sang. I'm like, holy shit, I'm famous. Well, the next day, I had to clean toilets and get a latte and help a guy to give a guy $2 or whatever. It was no different than any other day. But I thought it was worthy of a Guinness record. And I thought, well, all right, I sent in all the paperwork. My good friend Butch and I, we sent it all in. And about 8 months went by. It was December of 2008 when we got news from Guinness that said, we don't have a single song category and we don't want one. So why don't you try for the world's longest concert instead, which is a guitar festival in Hungary at 216 hours. And Butch looks at my address. It's 240 West 9 Mile. He says, what do you think about a 240-hour concert? I said, well, we're not going to do Danny Boy. I know that. And I said, you know, the auto workers are going through such a hard time. You know, it was 2008, and President Obama had just been elected, and I thought, you know, maybe we could do a concert and maybe the little guy can bail out the big guy, and we'll call it the Assembly Line Concert. And you know what? In March 2009, with an audience of the world and over 6 million web hits, we got the Guinness World Record for the world's longest concert and became known as the little cafe that bailed out the American auto industry one cup of coffee at a time. Pretty cool. So, he ain't heavy, he's my brother, you know? That's all. My brother was our chef for the entire time. We had the place for 5 years. And when I closed in 2012, I realized that we had the potential to really tell the story of Detroit through the back of our coffee. So we continued on with Detroit Bold Coffee Company. If you've ever had it, it's roasted right in Highland Park. It's a fantastic cup of coffee, and it really talks about Detroit's working class heritage. It's a working class Joe, and it really imbues and embodies the grit, the hard work, and the determination of hardworking Detroiters like yourself. I like to call Detroit my brother now, and you know what? He ain't heavy. He's my brother. Thanks.